Hey guys, welcome back to the Obi Thorin Alliance. What are we doing today, Jacob?
We're reviewing Stan original series Black Snow.
So stick around and see what we think of Black Snow. So, do you want to summarize Black Snow for us or kick us off?
Okay, so basically the concept of Black Snow is that this teenage girl is being murdered in this Queensland town, and she was murdered in 1994. We find out why she's been, or we proven she's been murdered. Her family thought she was murdered, and then because of this time capsule in 2019. So it's been 25 years of the time capsule, and then this cold case detective gets to the scene and basically tries and solve her crime. There's a lot of mystery, a lot of who's done it and why, and it's a really solid show for if you're looking for a mystery crime to solve.
Yeah, so he's in year 12. As Jacob said, they create this time capsule where the class of that year put in some things about themselves or some important like memorabilia or such, and when they open that, a few people are kind of sweating on what's going to come out of this time capsule, and then they end up finding her letter that basically says that there's lots of bad people in they're coming after her, and she might even be next to be murdered, which makes them become very suspicious of her circumstance. And then we follow this police officer who is a cold case specialist, and he has his own kind of dark backstory, and he comes and really opens the case wide open, and we go on this journey of trying to solve who it could be, and basically everyone's a plausible suspect, which I think makes it really good. And so in the end we find out why and who did it, and we're still left with this main character of his dark story. So his brother went missing when he was younger, and he's trying to find his brother, and I think the show leaves that open for a possible second season where you might find him going on that journey to discover his brother.
Yeah.
So should we get into a verdict about this show?
Sounds good.
Okay, so what'd you give it?
I gave it a 76% out of 100. It's a really solid mystery Australian show. The main actor out of Vikings does a solid job, and I was enthralled throughout the show, but its main problem, I think, it's not an amazing show. It does a solid job, but it's not a standout, if you know what I mean. It's hard to... We've got so many amazing shows like The Last of Us, that's a big standout. But Black Snow, if you're looking for something to watch something quickly, you definitely can't go wrong. And the main acting is superb. The location in Queensland is amazing, and the mystery is not so bad as our Australian shows. So really recommend it.
Yeah, so I gave it a bit higher. I gave it 83%. I thought as a murder mystery it did a really good job. I thought it was a unique twist that, a murder had basically been a cold case. They decided they don't know who it could be, and then through a time capsule it reopened it. I think that was a really interesting way to restart a cold case. I think the main character's acting was superb. I liked that they gave him a gritty backstory that wasn't so stupid, like, that he was tied into the murder or he'd murdered someone before. He's essentially just looking for his brother, and his dad murdered his mum, and his dad's a horrible person who's in prison. I think that was really cool, and we've talked about in other videos about murder mysteries finding ways to continue seasons, and I think that's given it a good enough reason to have additional seasons. And the fact that he's a cold case murderer, if the next season he follows on with another murder case, you're not going to go, oh, well, how does this keep coming to this guy? That's his job. It makes a lot of sense. I think it works well. I think it encapsulated Australia really well. A lot of Australian shows, I think they try and tailor to an American audience and try and change the way we talk and the scenery, where I think this really captured what an Australian rural town in Queensland would be like. Found that it wasn't easy to pick the murderer. I think there was a lot of plausible people, and then the reasoning I think was fine because it wasn't some dark conspiracy or where you go, oh, that doesn't add up. In the end, it was, kind of a wrong place at wrong time with a bit more to it than that, but it made sense. It's believable that could happen. My only real criticism for the show was the first episode, they really played up that the characters were talking kind of with indigenous slang, using terms like gammon, which basically means like you're joking, like stop being like an idiot kind of thing. And I'm probably somewhat wrong about that, but that's my understanding of it. And then they kind of just went away with that, which I think it got better. I don't know why the writing went with that, but they moved away from that slang because the characters, at first you assume they're indigenous, but they're actually not. They're from Vanuatu. So it didn't make sense why they would have that slang, but then actually that's not their culture. It was kind of inappropriate. So they moved away from that. That was probably my one thing I think they got a bit wrong. And the length of it was awesome. You know, episodes weren't too long, didn't have too many episodes. I thought it was a decent, quick watch, and I was really satisfied. I think it's one of the best Australian things I've seen in a very long time. Moving into the person who was guilty in the end, do you buy it? Do you think that was a bad choice, or do you think it ended the show perfectly?
I thought it was fine that it was Anton's father. I guess the main thing they didn't show you, but I wasn't shocked by it, but I was reasonably surprised. It was good, clever.
Yeah, the only thing about the whole murdering and him doing it that was a bit off for me was the fact that his son cut off a bit of the hair and put it in the time capsule. And I guess you justified that as he was hoping that would then, when the time capsule opened, that would encourage someone to do some more digging because he didn't want to dob on his dad or he didn't know what to do. But I think that's an odd thing to do, to cut off hair and put in the time capsule. It was probably the only thing that didn't quite make sense to me as in terms of what happened. But
yeah, you could have wrote a letter or something less suspicious.
Yeah, and beyond that, I think they nailed it with the murder and the fact that it wasn't too like, oh, he was really out to get her. She just was doing some digging, found out something she shouldn't have known, and he had no other choice. But then it was his son's girlfriend, so his son was like torn up with, do I dob in my dad, or how do you go with that? And it kind of ruined his life from that. So I think it was quite clever. What do you think about how Anton had the baby with the sister of the person that got murdered and who was his ex-girlfriend? Is that a necessary storyline?
Probably not, but it added conflict in it.
Yeah, and I think if it didn't exist, the show still pans out the same. It just kind of makes it a bit weird that he spent all this time with this girl, with the sister, and had never at any point mentioned that, my dad did this. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I feel like that's something that he may have revealed to her at some point. But I like that. I do. Did you like the fact that they tied in that it sent you on different paths where there was these Vanuatu immigrants that were working kind of illegally on the farm and they were getting mistreated, and like building that backstory with that, and then the murder coming from there?
Yeah, it was clever.
Did you at some point think that there was going to be some kind of like, not slavery, well, yeah, I guess like a slavery rink where maybe they were like multiple like these guys had gone missing and they were just killing them and digging them and putting them in like holes out the back, and it was an ongoing thing?
Yeah, that could have made sense.
That's what I kind of thought was going to happen. She was going to discover that's what was happening, and then that's why she got killed, because she knew too much. But essentially she just discovered one instance where someone had been shot kind of by accident, and then the guy, to cover up his own tracks, had to murder multiple times. What did you think about Brooke Satchwell's character? So she was the best friend of the person that had been murdered, and she had the van, and she was a bit of a bitch about it, and then she like found the stuff inside the van, the passports, and she burnt those instead of handing them into custody, and she was trying to like blackmail her dad. Was she a likable character, or do you kind of hope that she was some way tied in and she'd get in trouble?
I think her story was meant to make you think, oh, is she culprit? But really her purpose was just to be the annoying character that was unlikable.
Did you... I've asked you this before, but did you think that her father was possibly tied into it? Because the show wanted you to be pushed in that direction.
No, I didn't think her father, the rich person they made out, no.
Yeah, because the show pushed you in that direction where, there's... he employs all these people from Vanuatu, some have gone missing, You know, he has a lot of money and power. He seems to have the police doing what he says. It very much added up, you know, if you put it all together, that he did it, but it was just a matter of proving how. And then ultimately it was someone different. And I quite liked that it pushed him a few directions. And then even to the point where it was revealed it was the father of Anton. Still up to that point, it could have been Anton that did it. You know, there's lots of clues that suggested that he was there in terms of the music playing over the phone and how it came from his car, and he was there, and there's heaps of things that really could have tied him in. Because even at that point, I'm like, oh no, it's going to reveal it was him, and he's going to do something to this girl. But then ultimately it wasn't. He just wanted to spend time with his daughter, but he was covering up for his dad. Yeah, I think it had a lot of layers to it for a show that, you know, was pretty short. Yeah.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. You looking forward to a second season?
Yeah, I would definitely like them to make a second season. There was quite a lot of choices you could do his next case with. I guess depends how popular it is and if the writers want to do other seasons.
Is that how you'd like to see it? Him go on to another case, but then also be dealing with his own kind of mystery with his brother in the background? Or do you want to see it just focus on the brother?
Probably other case he has to solve.
Yeah, I think the brother thing probably doesn't have enough legs in it to make a season of it. Or it would just become too far-fetched where I'd be happy with him continuing his casework. Because in the end, he became a very likeable character, and he was kind of weird and unique too. Like, I don't know if they were trying to make him come across like the mentalist, or they came across with that vibe, but yeah, he's a great character.
I did find it suspicious how the police officer had his theory was someone out of town and he was wrong.
Yeah, you wonder if there was a bit of corruption, or the cop just didn't want to dig in and find out more, because, you know, it's a small town, and maybe he felt that, you know, the rich guy may have been involved, so he didn't want to do some digging and, you know, him to go missing himself. So he's like, oh, well, you know, I don't know who it could be. Like, this is just an unsolved murder. But in the end, you know, he was quite incompetent. Any other discussion points from this series?
I thought it was really unique with its going back and forth between the two timelines, with them being younger. But did you get a little bit sick of the whole righteous younger daughter was like ventilating like the statue? She kept like...
Yeah, it really was an unnecessary story.
Yeah,
not that I'm against what they were, just why she was doing it. It didn't add anything to the storyline, so it was kind of, could have been avoided because it didn't add much. And that's the same with her being the daughter of Antoine. I don't know what that added besides context as to like that kind of final scene, but it probably also could have been replaced with something else. So that was a bit different, but the flashbacks I think worked well. I liked the idea that he was kind of watching things through a camera. So they had filmed it, and by watching that would then lead into these flashbacks. But ultimately, it was an interesting choice that we got to see kind of scenes that weren't known. So I think of, for instance, we had the character who was the guy doing the filming in the flashbacks. He then grew up to become homosexual and had a partner, and he had her jewelry, and that kind of made us wonder, is he somewhat like part of this? Did something happen? But then he also said he woke up with blood on his hands, so it made you wonder, was he didn't know if he was involved in the murder. He doesn't remember, and so he does not remember that night, and it wasn't caught on film, but we got to see what happened in a flashback, which is different, because usually when you see a flashback, it's because someone remembers it or someone tells them what happened. But in this instance, we got an insight into something that none of the current characters remember. He doesn't remember it because he got knocked out, and the person that bashed him is dead now, and it wasn't caught on camera. So it's an odd thing that we're getting a flashback of something that no one currently in the story could have known that happened. So we got a kind of like an extra insight, but I guess that explains that, because we would have been left wondering, why did he have blood on him, and why did he have her jewelry? And it was simply she gave it to him, and he got bashed going home. So yeah, it's different. I can't think of a show that's done that with a flashback.
And the show really sets the tone at the start with the detective winning the toy and then setting the toy, and then he pays this person some money, and you think, oh, is he asking him for sexual favors? But it's not. He's telling him to bash him up, and it's like it sets the tone there.
Yeah, I wondered from that point onwards, watching this show, I kind of thought, oh, what am I getting into? This seems really odd. And
Yeah.
I must say, even after the first episode, I wasn't really that hooked on it, but then as I got into it more, I enjoyed it a lot. So
when it focused on the detective, because he's a good detective, but when the first thing made you thought it was going to be a different show, like him getting bashed up.
And they give reason for that later, but I guess if we were to skip that scene in the first instance we saw was when he got stressed and he kind of put the lighter on him, that would have been like, oh, why is he doing that? And then if he told the story later, it makes sense, but it was fine. It just kind of, if you were to watch the show and judge it on the first scene, you would have been like, what the hell is this about? It was just kind of mixed it up a bit, but then once you got beyond that, the show got really, really good.
Do you think a lot of people would skip the show after watching the first thing? And I would recommend to the audience that you don't, but
I think some people may have got put off by the first few scenes or the first episode and be like, what is this? But it definitely got really good beyond that.
Yeah, definitely keep watching, because the first scene is kind of a different show from everything else.
Yeah, but it ties in well with his character arc, so it's good development, I guess.
Did you like the scene when we got to meet his father in prison?
Yeah, his father was a real arsehole, to be honest, and they really portrayed that well, and good mystery, and now I'm really wanting to find out what the deal is with his brother and why his brother was there, and where's his brother been and can he track him down. So it really sets it up, which is good for a murder mystery to plant a seed for multiple seasons without it being unrealistic, where you see a lot of shows where it's like they solved the murder, but they do something bad and someone was in the bushes and saw it and that person's going to blackmail them. This didn't need something stupid. It's just, he's a cop, he solves murders, but he also has his own mystery that he can't seem to solve. And I think that's really well writing, really.
Bottom line, I definitely think it's worth watching, especially if you are Australian. I think you'll definitely enjoy watching, and can't say more about it.
Yeah, agree. I think even international viewers should give it a bit of insight into the Australian outback.
Can international people watch Stan?
It might be on it might be on Peacock or something in America, who knows. But if you can find it somewhere elsewhere, watch it. I think it was a great find, and I think it can appeal to a wide audience based upon the fact that the mystery was good, and it's not too specific. It's not like you watch this and go, what the hell's that mean? I'm not Australian, I wouldn't know what they're referring to. There's nothing that was so, specific to Australia that couldn't apply elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching. Hit the notification bell to be notified of the next coming video. As always, you're awesome, and catch you next time. Bye-bye.